Yoshi Shiratori was born on July 31, 1907 in Japan. He is one of Japan's most famous prisoners with 4 successful prison escapes. You are watching The Real Case. If you like our videos, don't forget to click like, subscribe to encourage our spirit. Thank you very much. Yoshi initially worked in a tofu shop, but he later changed his profession to become a crab fisherman. After changing jobs many times but still being poor, Yoshi began to associate with many bad people and got into gambling. Yoshi commits many petty crimes, and this puts him on the radar of the police. In 1936, Yoshi was charged with murder. Yoshi insisted that he was wrongly accused and that a local gang had set him up and that the police had forced him to confess. But Yoshi's plea went unheard. He was taken to a Mori prison for detention. At that time, Japanese prisons were considered hell on earth, with guards often mistreating and torturing prisoners. There are many prisoners trying to escape, but no one has ever succeeded. However, Yoshi is an exception. A Mori prison is not an easy escape, but Yoshi has nothing to lose. Yoshi had been watching the guards' habits for months. He noticed the security holes and knew he had 15 minutes to escape. One day, at 5:30 a.m., Yoshi picked the lock on his cell using a piece of steel wire. This piece of string he took from the handle of a bucket in the bathroom. Yoshi's hands were stiff from the cold, but after a few minutes of struggling, Yoshi successfully broke the lock, his whole body shaking with fear and excitement. The road to freedom is still far, because there are still many locked doors ahead, like a Yoshi cat silently disappearing into the darkness. At 5:45 a.m., the guards turned back to look into Yoshi's cell, thinking that Yoshi was still fast asleep under the tattered blanket. But they did not expect that under that blanket there was no Yoshi at all, but just a pile of loose boards, which the Yoshi had arranged to deceive the guards. It wasn't until the next morning that the guards discovered the truth. Sirens blared throughout the prison complex, but Yoshi was gone. Yoshi didn't stay free for long, though. 3 days later, he was arrested again while trying to steal food from a hospital. Yoshi returned to prison, and this time he was given a life sentence. 6 years later, in 1942, World War II is breaking out, and Yoshi is transferred to Akita prison. Here, Yoshi is imprisoned in a cell specially designed for escaped prisoners. It is a cramped cell with a very high ceiling. The room had no bed, only a cold concrete floor. The 4 walls were covered with smooth copper sheets, impossible to climb on. But the worst thing is that there is almost no sunlight here. The only window is a small sealed skylight high up. The guards here treat Yoshi even worse than in a Mori. They heard about Yoshi's previous escape, so they decided to torture him to set an example for other prisoners. Yoshi was not only beaten, but also forced to handcuff his hands and feet. All day long he was handcuffed 24/7. All the guards here abused Yoshi except for one person, Kobayashi, the captain of the guards. I don't know if Kobayashi pity or has special feelings for Yoshi, but he is always kind to Yoshi. Kobayashi has never touched Yoshi. He even cares a bit and often asks about Yoshi like a friend. This made Yoshi's life in prison a little easier, but Yoshi always knew he was not willing to wait to die in prison, and he planned his second escape. It was a stormy night. Around midnight, a guard looked into Yoshi's cell and couldn't believe his eyes. The guard opened the cell door and looked around in surprise. Yoshi had disappeared into thin air. All that was left was the handcuffs lying on the floor. It turns out that Yoshi has been planning his escape for a long time. Handcuffs are not a problem for Yoshi because he is a master of unlocking locks. Yoshi found a short piece of iron wire from a lunchbox the prison warden brought him, but the problem is how to get out of this place. Yoshi noticed that the only skylight in the ceiling was sealed, but the doorframe around it had begun to rot, and so night after night when the guards weren't paying attention, Yoshi climbed up the bronze wall, smooth as a lizard. He loosened the doorframe little by little, then he would climb back down and put the handcuffs back on so as not to arouse suspicion. After a few months, the door frame finally came loose. Yoshi waited until a stormy night to act because the guards wouldn't be able to hear his footsteps on the roof. And just like that, Yoshi escaped from prison once again. This time, Yoshi was especially careful not to get caught. 3 months later, on September 18th, prison chief Kobayashi was at home when he heard a knock on the door. Kobayashi was extremely shocked to see that in front of his house was Yoshi Shiratori, a notorious prisoner on the run. Dirty, but he seemed healthy. Kobayashi took him into the house and fed him. While listening to what Yoshi wanted to say, Yoshi said that the only reason he always wanted to escape prison was because he didn't want to endure the mistreatment of the guards. Kobayashi is the only person who respects and treats him like a human being. Yoshi begs Kobayashi to help him in a lawsuit against the injustice and poor living conditions of prisoners in the Japanese prison system. Yoshi thought a lot before going to the prison chief's house. He doesn't want to live in hiding for the rest of his life. He longs to do something to change the terrible living conditions of countless other prisoners, even though this means he will be turned away. Prison again. Furthermore, Yoshi believes that Kobayashi is a good man and that he will do the right thing to help all the prisoners who are being tortured in prison. However, Yoshi was too naive. As soon as Yoshi entered the restroom, Kobayashi called the police, and Yoshi bitterly returned to prison again. This time he vows to never trust anyone again. His 2 prison escapes have made the name Yoshi legendary. The press began reporting on his extraordinary prison escapes, which turned the Japanese prison system into a farce. Therefore, the authorities wanted to make sure that Yoshi would never escape again, so they sent him to the infamous Abashiri prison in Hokkaido on the extreme side north of Japan. Abashiri is a maximum security prison located in a desolate place with the coldest weather in Japan. This prison is often surrounded by snow. This helps prevent prisoners from escaping, as they are only allowed to wear loose uniforms. The Abashiri has neither loose vents nor a 15-minute gap in the guard rotation. No one has ever escaped from here alive, and escaping from prison here is even more difficult than getting to heaven. Despite the bitter cold, Yoshi was thrown into the cell in his clothes summer. He arrogantly declared that there was no use in handcuffing him and that he would sneak out again. It wasn't smart for Yoshi to challenge the guards like that. They made a particularly strong iron handcuff to tie his hands behind his back, and this time his legs were also handcuffed. These handcuffs weigh 20 kilo each and have no keyhole. The only way to remove them was to have 2 metal experts. Even these 2 experts struggled for 2 hours to remove the handcuffs. The guards also cut back on the already meager food portions to prevent Yoshi from escaping. This time, Yoshi truly knew what hell on earth was like. Every day the guards would fill a hole with food, and Yoshi would have to crawl to get it. His handcuffed limbs caused him constant pain even when he slept, but somehow he survived the winter. Spring is coming outside and it's getting warmer. One night, a security guard was ironing some papers in his office when he heard a strange noise on the roof. He didn't know what it was, but still, decided to go on patrol to check on the first thing he went to check was Yoshi's cell. When he looked inside, he was stunned. Inside were specially made 20-kilo handcuffs and leg cuffs that should have taken 2 experts to place, and Yoshi disappeared again. The alarm immediately sounded, but it was too late. Yoshi has escaped, but how could he escape from there? It turns out the planning started 6 months ago. At that time, Yoshi no longer had any strength nor any tools to help him escape. The only things he has are time and patience. Every day, Yoshi would save a little miso soup and sprinkle it on the handcuffs and on the door to push the food. His intention was for the salt in the miso soup to oxidize the screws and bolts, causing them to corrode and loosen. After many months of perseverance, this plan finally gave results. The first screw of the shackle has come loose. Yoshi used this screw as a screwdriver to remove the remaining screws. By late spring, he was able to completely remove the handcuffs and leg shackles. The steel frame of the food push slot also gradually corrodes. Yoshi broke it, making the hole bigger. The meager rations left Yoshi with only skin and bones, but the hole was still too big for him to fit through. Yoshi then cracked his knuckles to slide over it. He then climbed through a broken window in the roof and disappeared into the darkness. To this day, Yoshi is the first and only prisoner to escape from Abashiri. Though the guards are pretty sure just because Yoshi escaped doesn't mean he survived. This is northern Hokkaido, and the only direction Yoshi can go is towards the cold, snowy mountains. There are all kinds of dangerous beasts lurking there. But Yoshi survived. He discovered an abandoned mine on a mountainside. Yoshi initially picked wild berries and hunted hares to survive, but gradually he learned to hunt fish and catch crabs in a nearby stream. Yoshi's life is increasingly stable and quite safe. However, after a while, loneliness and sadness overwhelmed him. After 2 years of living in isolation, Yoshi went down the mountain to a nearby village. At this time, Yoshi learned that the war had ended and Japan had surrendered. He wants to return to Aomori to find his wife and children. It was a long and arduous journey. After many months, he reached Sapporo. By this time, Yoshi was exhausted and nearly starving. One day, he was walking slowly when he suddenly woke up to see a field of ripe tomatoes. Hunger overcame fear. Yoshi decided to steal. It was a wrong decision. The farmer discovered him and chased him. During the struggle, Yoshi stabbed the farmer with a knife, causing the farmer to die on the spot. Yoshi is captured again. Crime upon crime. This time Yoshi was sentenced to death even though he insisted that he acted in self-defense. In 1947, Yoshi was imprisoned for the 4th time and sent to Sapporo prison to await execution. This time the guards watched him 24 hours a day, and the only feed hole in the cell was smaller than Yoshi's head. Yoshi can dislocate but cannot tighten his skull. The guards were so confident that they didn't bother handcuffing him. At this time, Yoshi had been gone for many years, running away and living a wandering life, making his health much weaker. Yoshi always looked up at the high ceiling with no way out and his life with no way out. However, one morning the guards looked into the cell and Yoshi was gone again. How did he escape? It turns out that this time Yoshi dug a tunnel using a bowl of miso soup. He only dug at night, and the hole was right under the bed. After many months, the tunnel opened to the outside and Yoshi successfully escaped again. At this time, the story of Yoshi's escape from prison had spread everywhere, and the Japanese prison system became the butt of jokes and many gossips. After a year of freedom, Yoshi happened to sit next to a police officer in the park. The policeman suddenly offered Yoshi a cigarette. At that time, cigarettes were an extremely luxury item in Japan. Yoshi was so touched by the policeman's kindness that he admitted he was an escaped prisoner and asked to surrender. He was captured and tried again, but this time Yoshi's prison escape story attracted great public attention. The Supreme Court has reviewed Yoshi's case. They reinvestigated the case and admitted that his act of killing the farmer was due to self-defense. Furthermore, during his escape, he never injured or killed any guards. Due to that, the court annulled the death sentence and sentenced him to 20 years in prison for absconding. Yoshi happily accepted the punishment. In 1961, he was released. He returned to Aomori to reunite with his family, but his wife died while he was in prison. Yoshi decided to return to an honest life. He does odd jobs to make a living. Yoshi died in 1979 after suffering from heart failure. He was 71 years old. What do you think about Yoshi? Is he an extremely intelligent person but unlucky? Please leave your opinion below in the comments section. Thank you very much.